Hi, here's a video demonstrating the revenue recognition functionality in Financial Force. In this case, I've got two projects that I'll be recognizing. The first one is the T&M project. It's actually a hybrid. We're doing some fixed fee with some fixed fee milestones, and then the actual project itself has got time and materials time cards. So you'll notice that the RevRec method on the project is delivery. This means that we'll be recognizing the time cards. So in this case, the time cards that have been approved. I've actually already recognized revenue through October 31st. So we'll recognize revenue now through November 31st, November 30th, excuse me. So I'll be pulling in time cards that are in November. So you'll see here there's actually one time card that was approved for $800 in November. The December time cards will not get pulled in because I'm not going to actually set my recognition date to any times in December. In addition, because this is a hybrid project, I also have a milestone here. This milestone, the first one, the deliverable, hasn't been completed yet, so this won't be recognized. But the one that's the percent complete, if I drill into this real quickly, you'll see that this has got a start date of 11/1 that goes through 1/31, but it's currently 50% complete. That comes from the fact that there's a planned hours of 160 on this milestone, and we've actually worked 80 hours against it. So this milestone is going to be able to recognize $5,000 worth of revenue. Nothing's been recognized to date, but this is what's eligible to be recognized. So when I look at the fixed fee project, in this case it's the Western Michigan University fixed fee -1. What we'll see here is that we haven't recognized revenue yet on this project. Since we have 5% complete on this project, we'll be recognizing 5% of the $100,000. That will end up, that's the revenue earned number. And then if we have any milestones, in this case, we do have a $10,000 milestone that has not been approved yet, so we won't be actually recognizing anything against this milestone. In fact, if this is a billing milestone, I don't believe it even ever gets recognized. So we're only recognizing what we actually have worked against the labor revenue. Okay, so revenue recognition starts in the Recognize Revenue tab. So by clicking on that, it'll open up the tab, the page. And once again, this page works like the revenue forecast page where I can select my filters. So again, I've come in and I've actually limited my filter to Western Michigan University for the account. So by filtering by that account, it then will show me just the projects that belong to Western Michigan University. And I've actually just choosing the fixed fee 1 and the T&M project. I'm also going to change my recognition date to be November 30th so that I only recognize through the end of November. And at this point I can click Get New Data, and the system will go out and pull all the data in from those two projects through that date to be included in my revenue recognition. Okay, so now it stages the data and I actually have to physically retrieve it. I think this is going to be streamlined in a future release, but right now what I have to do is, after I get my data, I need to click Retrieve. And now you'll see it brings in my two projects. So now once I retrieve my data, I can see for the time and materials project, when I expand it, you'll notice that this is a separate folder. This folder is related to the project management milestone. Again, if I went back to that project, these time cards themselves were linked to the project management milestone, so that's why I see the breakdown. So if I click into that milestone, you'll see, hey, here's my time cards. There's the November time card for 800 hours, and then I can also have in this case, I've got the percent complete on this milestone as well. So this may not be a perfect use case, but just to kind of demonstrate the functionality of the system, what happens is you'll see each of the milestones that have time cards lumped by, grouped into the milestone, and then underneath the project you'll see each of the milestones. Again, here I've got that one time card for James Hill in November for $800, and I've got that 50% complete of 10,000, so I got a $5,000 recognize. To recognize this period. You could edit this to be less than 5,000, so if I wanted to recognize less, you have the ability to go in and key that in. I'm not going to adjust any of the recognition amounts. I'm actually going to recognize everything as needed. And then secondarily, there's the percent complete on the project. The Western Michigan University fixed fee is a percent complete. So this is the 5,380 that we talked about on that project. Right now that's based off of the 5.38% recognized. In this case, I can then go ahead and I can select these. I'll select all of them, you'll notice there's a current issue in the that I have to actually select. I have to do this in 2 steps. So I'm going to first select everything that's related to the milestones. Hit submit. I'm going to do November RevRec. And I'm going to, there's my period, I'm going to create my transactions and commit it. Okay, and then it's going to leave the second one in here that I had to do separately, so I'm going to submit that one as well. And create transaction and commit that as well. So now when I hit get new data, it should pull in the projects. Once again, the background, it's pulling the data into a staging tables in the background. So if you're recognizing revenue for thousands of projects at a time, this will be done in the background. And then ultimately, once it's done preparing the data, it'll give you an option to retrieve the data. So my retrieve button is blue. I click retrieve, and it pulls in the excuse me, sorry. I've actually already recognized the revenue. So now when I go back into the projects, what we can see is if I refresh the project, you'll notice now that it says on the project itself says revenue recognition has been completed. The RevRec last commit date was 11/30, which is the date that we had set, and the period that we've recognized through is 2015 November. And now you'll notice that we've got a recognized date in the labor category. And then so we have remaining labor, remaining revenue for the labor, and then the total remaining revenue on the project is also calculated. If I look up here in the revenue recognition transaction line, here you see the 2 different revenue transactions that we created for this project. If I were to jump over to the if I jump over onto the time and materials project, again, we'll also see down here that we have the revenue recognition has been marked as completed. The commit date is 11/30 with the period set, and you'll also notice here that we now have the recognized date has been updated. In this case, the recognized date is a historical total. So what we've done is we recognize revenue previously. So here you can see we recognize as $10,000 in November, in October. We recognized the second time in November, in October for 5,000. So we had a total of 15,000 recognized in October. And now we just had the $800 and the $5,000 recognized in November. And so that adds up to the total of 20,800. And now we're ready to start the process for forecasting in December and then recognizing in December.